right, we're back with another episode of Talking Preps. It is week 4, Grace. Is that right? Of the high school
Yeah,
football
we're in
season?
week 4.
Week 4 of the high school football season. Sam still hasn't lost a game. I'm befuddled. I don't understand it. It's like 1995 or something where Charlotte's winning. It's kind of weird. Uh, but I got to tell y'all, I went downtown to catch a little bit of this college football game day experience. And Sam, this is directed at you because you coach young people and Grace too. What is with all these dudes wearing the little itty bitty shorts, man? What happened to the baggy short? What is up with that?
Hey, I like the short shorts. Hey, all we're showing is that we're not just doing bench day on Mondays. A lot of days now we're starting with legs on Mondays and we're showing it off. That's all it is.
Gary, do we need to go back to baggy shorts like when me and you were younger? You know, the Michigan issue. Do we need to go back to that? Because I don't want to see people's junk when I'm walking down the street. I'm just.
It changes every 2 to 3 years. When I was a head basketball coach, and we would get uniforms every 3 years in rotation.
Yeah.
And they was like, yeah, get the big ones. I would get the big baggies.
Right.
By the time the season starts, they're rolling them up. They're too big. We need smalls. Next time I order uniform, I get smalls. We want baggy. It's hard to keep up with it. I mean, you know, I see it at wherever I'm subbing.
Well, I just think right now, you remember how we were younger, Gary? We used to wear the bikey tights under the shorts because the shorts are so short. Okay, the shorts are that short, but they're not wearing the little bikey tights under there anymore.
Nope.
I'm just saying, I'm walking down how you say that, Romare Bearden Park, and I'm like, bruh, no.
Man.
I look at some of the trees and I'm like, is Russell Simmons your idol? They don't even know who Russell Simmons is.
Grace, you in a running club. Do we wear shorts that short when we're running?
I don't go that short. These guys are going for the 5. It's like when you go in the store, don't get the 5. At least go 7.5. That you gotta go a little bit more. I can't do the 5. I'm too big to do the 5. I'm a big guy. I think some of these smaller guys kind of get away with it.
Tell them I thought this was a
Chris, you're old school. You're not doing the 5
show.
Right?
I do the short shorts as well. You know,
I'm
still a fan of the whole.
That.
You know, the John Stockton era. You know, everybody else had the long ones. I'm John Stockton.
Oh my God!
Wow, I did not expect that.
I'm with them.
I hope they continue to make baggy shorts because I can't go with the little itty bitty ones. I'll be a long pants all the time. All right, let's talk football. Sam, your alma mater, Saturday night, goes down to Georgia, Cam Newton's showcase, and they beat Langston Hughes, number 17 in the country. They forced 5 turnovers and won that football game. What are your thoughts on Butler pulling off such a big win?
That's back to Butler football. You know, going on the road, it's not like this team came to them. So it's a totally different scenario. And, you know, Georgia came up to Mallard Creek and they made that long trip and still came out with a win. Mallard Creek played extremely tough. But Butler going down to Georgia to pull off this huge upset, it's just going back to Butler football. When Butler was really great, the defense was one of the best defenses in the state, led by Steve Shaughnessy. Now they have Stone, and he's doing a great job. I think his identity is there, coming from Mallard Creek from the past. And when you do this on defense, it is big time for your program. You know, that's the reason why we're 3-0. Actually, I'm not trying to flip the script on us, but, you know, when you have defensive touchdowns or defensive special teams type deals, it can put your team in a great situation to win.
Did that surprise you, Chris? Butler went down there and did that?
No, not at all. I saw Butler a week ago and they played Richmond County, and I came away thinking that they were the best team I had seen in quite some time. You know, in the past, you know, when they
wait, the best Butler team you've seen in some time?
They're the best Butler team I've seen in some time. You know, in recent years, and to kind of go along with what Coach was saying, you know, I thought that they were winning in spite of their defense a few years ago, but now they're winning and dominating because of that defense. The way they just dominated Richmond and then went down there, and, you know, the 30-27 score really isn't indicative of how well that game was played by Butler. It's what I expected. And that's going to show in this week's rankings as well. You know, I hate to say it was a fluke, but it was kind of a fluke loss when they went up to Rolesville, you know, missing 7 starters. And I think we're finally seeing what Butler really is.
Alex.
Butler is back. Butler is back because Butler has shown that it can get on D. And in tribute to Butler being back to the championship form Butler of old, and given this win over Langston Hughes High School, it's important that we share the following, because Butler had dreams of coming back. So in the spirit of Langston Hughes and the poem Dreams, hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die. Life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. That is the poem Dreams by Langston Hughes, whom Butler defeated this past Friday, and held on to the dreams of being back at championship level. Yes, Butler is back.
I don't think it's a dream anymore. I think Butler's really, really good.
You're gonna find out like how good they really are. Because remember, I said I love Butler and I want them to win every game they can.
Yeah.
But they're going against, I think, the most sound football team in North
Yeah,
Carolina in Weddington.
we're gonna warm Grice up in a little bit to get on that game a little bit later. Let's talk about some more teams having hot starts. Marvin Ridge is 3-0. They got a running back that's killed it. East Gaston is 3-0. They beat Kramer, I think, for the first time in 6 years. Hickory, no, I should be Hickory Grove is 3-0. I'm gonna change that. Hickory Grove is 3-0, and Hopewell, Chris, is 2-1 for the first time in quite some time. They got a big win against Barry the other night. Did that surprise you? The Hopewell's off to a good start because Barry was trying to start 3-0.
Yeah, I picked Barry in that game, and I thought Barry might have been just a smidget better, but I thought ultimately those were two fairly even teams, and congratulations to everybody over at Hopewell for what they were able to do. I'm glad to see that program, turn the corner and start making some headway with Coach Gentry. Obviously, I know Grice was over there. He wants to see that program do well as well. Looking at East Gaston, Coach Postel, he has steadily really been building, and not steady. I mean, I think he's well above the curve in building East Gaston. That's the best I've seen them look probably since Greg Lloyd was there in 2007 or 2008. So that East Gaston team's really, really solid. I'm anxious to see when they play a Shelby and a Burns to really see what level they've improved.
Grice, you know how tough it is to win at Hopewell. How significant is it for them to get off to this type of start? Their best start in a long time.
Definitely. I mean, I think, kudos to Coach Gentry, but I mean, if we know Coach Gentry's history, this isn't the first time that he's done something at a program of taking them, to new heights. I mean, we think about the Nick Wilds Lawing era out of Northwest Cabarrus and what he was able to do there. And unfortunately, not getting that opportunity to get that West Cabarrus program off of the ground. I spent time with him at Mallard Creek, and I know that was the one thing as we both departed after that 1 year, he was looking at the Hopewell program and kind of thought just, as I had during my time there, of just taking the opportunity to, really go in there and try to build something pretty good. So I think he's done a good job, even amid, all the challenges that we know that comes with coaching an inner city school that a lot of people can attest to. So again, great start. I think he did a good job of scheduling that non-conference to place themselves in position to be successful. But the one thing that's tough around there is you have those 4 schools around there within 20 minutes at Huff, Chambers, Creek, and North Meck. So tougher games are ahead. Good for them to celebrate the success so far, though.
Another team in that – go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yep, I agree. Totally.
Oh, okay. Another team in that same conference. We got the coach down at the bottom of the screen. West Charlotte's 13-0, Gary, for the first time in 3-0 rather for the first time in 13 years. The fans came back to West Charlotte. The fish was back at West Charlotte. Is West Charlotte back? Is this the Lion pride that you remember as a North Met guy losing all the time to West Charlotte Union High School?
I saw the old Lion pride Friday night. I got over there, it was a long line at the gates, nowhere to park, people parking all throughout University Park. You come in, they got the DJ going, they got fish going, and you saw people in their 50s and 60s, 70s, people I used to see 30 years ago when I went over there. It's back. It's back. But I told Sam yesterday, not only is it back for the good stuff, it's going to be back for the other stuff. Because they're going to be on it now.
Expectations going up.
That's fine.
So does criticism.
No doubt. I'm expecting it. And what heals everything? Winning. So as long as we keep doing that, we'll be okay.
You got some tough games ahead. You got to face Chambers. You got to face Huff. You got to face Mallard Creek. The thick of that conference schedule's coming up.
Yeah, no doubt. But that's why we scheduled such a tough non-conference schedule. Potentially Independence is going to be a tear. I wouldn't want to play them going forward. I think that, Monroe can win the 2A state championship. I really believe that. They're explosive in so many areas. And then Palisades is, is going to be a lot tougher than you think, and they'll compete in that conference and possibly could win that conference championship. We'll see.
All right. Well, we'll have much more to talk about with West Charlotte and some other teams as we get to Chris's rankings on the backside of this break. Meantime, make sure you get yourself some Deer Park water.
Deer Park is celebrating its 150th anniversary.
Deer Park? That's good water.
You can taste how pure Deer Park is.
Deer Park, that's good water.
Deer Park, that's still good water.
All right, guys, let's take a look at this week's top 10 rankings, starting here with the 8-man following the third week of action here in North Carolina. No strangers up top. Wayne Christian has really done a great job. Halifax Academy. Some of the who's of teams that you're used to seeing up top. I think we're going to see a certain resurgence here by Faith Christian here as the season goes on, and probably St. David's as well up in Raleigh. But let's turn the corner and look really.
Wait, I got one quick question. Have you guys ever seen 8-man football?
Yes.
I thought one game it was like 800 to 800. I mean,
I'm going to say this, and I've been on the record about this in the past. I think the NCHSAA should seriously consider going to an 8-man division when it comes to some of the smallest 1A schools. I think that it would just revolutionize 1A football in the state and really give some small schools the opportunity to compete at a bigger stage. Let's take a look at this NCHSAA. We missed the other private. Okay, well, we're just going to go into the 1A then. Mount Airy right there again, number one, no surprise. Tarboro number two. Robbinsville had that big win over last week's 8th-ranked team in Mountain Heritage. Cutler Adams still running all over the place. He's just an incredible player here in the 1A rank. So no surprise there. A couple changes though. Northampton County did drop out. They had a 28-7 victory yesterday over Kip Pride. Still a really good team. Their defense is phenomenal, but really just looking at some of these other teams that's really started to up their game, as we mentioned, inching towards the conference season.
I see Drone back in the rankings again.
Yeah, Drone had a really impressive victory over another team that was undefeated going into it, East Burke, who I think has turned the corner and kind of gotten back to where they've been in years past.
Burke County battles.
Looking here at the 2A rankings, Clinton, number one. Salisbury moves up to number two. Reedsville I had a little bit lower down, and then they had that big victory a couple weeks ago over Greensboro Page, and then struggled mightily this week against Rockingham County. And Reedsville just seems to be a little bit hit or miss, and when they play hard, and when they're kind of firing on all cylinders, I guess is the best way of putting it. But Salisbury is just dominating right now. Just the Hornets seem to be doing a great job. Whiteville has that. You got that number 3 versus number 1 matchup here Friday night. That's going to be a big one. Obviously, Reedsville, Forest Hills, East Dukeland, the defending state champions, and then there's Monroe that Sam was talking about. That top 7 teams, and I agree with Sam. I think anybody in that top 7 is capable of winning the state championship.
Last week, Sam was saying Monroe shouldn't drop any further than 2 after that loss to West Charlotte. Sam, you still stand by that? And Chris, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm standing by that. If you ask me who is winning the 2A state championship, no disrespect to anybody, but I'm still taking Monroe with the legendary coach that they have, Johnny Sal, and the talent that they have is unbelievable. If they just had a little bit more depth, I don't think we could have beat them in the game.
Right. Okay. Hey, you coached them. I respect that, Sam. They're going to have plenty of opportunity to get back up there, and the season's very early, so we've got plenty of chances to see that. But let's take a look here at the 3A.
Look at Sam. Look at Sam.
Number 1. Greensboro Dudley just thoroughly annihilated Southeastern Guilford.
Wait, Chris, you flipped. Chris was number 1 last week.
Greensboro Dudley is back. I'm telling you. Okay. Or not Southeast Guilford, Hillside. That 54-7 victory they had Friday night just completely changed my opinion on Dudley. I have had a chance to look at some of the film on the Panthers. Coach Stephen Davis is just unbelievable. You don't talk about Johnny Sal in the 2A ranks. Stephen Davis is as good as it comes. Crest, my thing about Crest is, they're going to have to tighten the defense up eventually when it gets to playoff time. They're winning games, giving up 36, 40 points a game. And one of these days that could catch up with you, whereas Dudley is barely giving up 6 points a game. And I think that's the difference for me. As the defense, as Alex likes to say, Dudley really gets on D. There you see West Charlotte, Kings Mountain again. They had that tough victory over Burns. The rest of them's a who's who list, but two teams that's kind of there towards the bottom that I've got my eyes on that I think are seriously consider contenders for moving up, and that is Scotland County. I think Richard Bailey and the Scots are a lot better than you give them credit for. They are just inching their way forward. And then Southern Nash, the former home of Julius Peppers. I think that Southern Nash is another one of those teams that is just sneaky good on defense.
I keep telling y'all, East Lincoln, we slept on them last year. Don't sleep on them this year. They could be back. Let's take a look at the private schools, Chris.
Oh, here we go with private schools. Okay. Hey, no surprise. Look who the number one team is. Well deserved. Not only the number one team in the 11-man private schools, but really the best team in all the Carolinas. And our Carolinas top 25 definitely reflects that. But what Coach Chad Greer's got going on down there at Providence Day is just phenomenal. I think that they have finally emerged on the scene as a national power. I'm proud of that program just to see where they're at, and they're just dominating everybody. Raven Gap there, number 2, Charlotte Christian, Metrolina Christian. Christ School right there. I know Christ School is 0-3, but I think Christ School really, in my opinion, is probably a third or fourth, number 2 or 3 team. You look at the teams they've played. They went down to Valdosta, Georgia to play Lowndes County. They went and played St. Joseph out of New Jersey, Carrollwood out of Tampa. These are all powerhouse programs that they've went out and played. And then this upcoming week, Friday night, they've got their game against Raven Gap. So we're going to really see that team tested, and then when they get into the back half of the season and start playing some of the other teams, I think that they're going to roll through the competition. So that's a team that really sticks out to me.
It's kind of like West Charlotte. I keep telling people when they get to the 3A playoffs and that speed limit slows down, it might be dangerous. But there's some really tough teams in 3A. Let's talk about the Fight Club, Grice's favorite one. Here we go.
Well, here's the 4A Fight Club, and I'll say this, and I might take some flack for it, and that's fine. I've done the research, and I know what I'm talking about. I don't think the 4A is quite as deep as I thought they were in recent years. I think the 4A is just a little bit more top-heavy, and when I say top-heavy, about 4, 5, 6 deep, and then after that, I think it gets pretty close pretty quick. But there you see the top: Grimsley, Weddington, Easter Scythe, Mallard Creek, Butler. I think that those top 5 teams right there have a decided advantage over the rest of the state, in my opinion. And I know that my Twitter's going to light up for that, and I don't care. But I firmly believe in that. You've still got some really good teams out there, but I think that those 5 teams up top have really separated themselves in my mind.
Alex, can a Leesville Road or a Cleveland or a Roseville or Cardinal Gibbons, can they get to it? Can they win a state championship? And which one of them do you think will get to the state championship?
Well, all of those schools, Leesville, Cleveland, Roseville, and Cardinal Gibbons, have shown that they can get to a state championship, and Cardinal Gibbons has shown that it can win a state championship. Cardinal Gibbons winning a state championship did so by defending very well. It was Nick Drew's defense.
Oh, here we go. What up, Nick Drew?
It was Nick Drew's defense that set the tone for Cardinal Gibbons to win a state championship.
But can one of those teams win this year, and which one's going?
Can one of them win this year? Of course, one of them can win this year. Will it be a formidable challenge? Yes, it will be a formidable challenge. It was a formidable challenge all those years. I mean, when Gibbons got there against
Okay, Mr. Politician, stop ducking the question. Which one is going to the state championship game?
Which one is going to the state championship game?
Yes.
The one that wins the regional championship.
Oh, here we go.
I'll answer that question for him. I think right now, a couple teams are not quite peaked to where they're going to be, which is why they're outside of the top 10. But there's 2 teams right now, maybe 3 teams, in my opinion, or I'll even say 4 that are not in the top 10 from the East that I think are state championship worthy, and that would be Southview in Fayetteville, Wilmington Laney, Wilmington Hoggard, and really the squad team. What Coach I'm blanking right there. My man over Durham Jordan. They're the team that's really that's surprising me.
Did you just say the Fighting Michael Jordans can make the state championship game?
I do.
Oh, wow.
Antonio King, by the way. I'm sorry about that, Coach King, man. My mind gets going, and then you know how I get when I start talking about football teams. But Durham, Jordan, they just look different than any team I've seen in a couple years, especially out of that Durham area. They were very reminiscent to me of some of those Hillside teams he had when Bad Lee was playing for him back around 08, 09.
Amari and Lee ran for 5 touchdowns on Friday night. He's very, very good.
Ooh, he should have been on Grice's gym, maybe. All right, let's talk about some big games, Guru, before you lose your voice. We got Charlotte Christian going to play undefeated Calvary Day, the number 1 ranked 3A team down in Georgia. That should be a big game. And then you got Gibbons and Roseville. Just tell us about this list.
Oh, I mean, all great games. And I think there's a whole lot more that we couldn't even put on there for the sake of space. But yeah, Charlotte Christian's a team that just continues to show me week in and week out what they're made of. I'm anxiously, again, I love seeing these Georgia and North Carolina battles. You know, I know we've got our battles with North and South Carolina, but I think Georgia football is where it's at. The fact that North Carolina just continues to hold strong against those Peach State teams really does my heart good. Gibbons at Rollsville, I think that's going to be a tight game. Again, Rollsville is a solid football team, very good football team. We saw what they did against a weakened Butler team in week one, but nonetheless, Coach Rackley and everything over there at Rollsville, they're really solid. Laney against a team that I had mentioned. I really like what Laney's doing right now, although they're going to be playing a battle-hardened Cape Fear team Friday night. Gaffney at Mallard Creek, you know, that's a big one. Eastern Alamance at Reidsville. I think we're going to really finally find out what Reidsville is made of Friday night. Salisbury at Person, again, all these incredible games. Millbrook at Broughton, Clinton at White Bull, number 1 against number 3, just big-time games.
Yeah, I want to ask Alex about the Raleigh game, the Millbrook Broughton, your thoughts there. And then again, Gibbons and Roseville, just 1 minute, your thoughts on those two games.
Bounce back game from Millbrook. Millbrook had a tough loss to Garner. Garner had to rally from 2 touchdowns down against Millbrook in the second half. So a big bounce back opportunity for Millbrook and Mason Fortune with an opportunity to close out a win after a tough loss last week. Gibbons and Rolesville, just Rolesville going from one elite quarterback to another, and Byron Brown from a couple years ago to Braden Atkinson, who thrived as a sophomore in their playoff run and is back again this year. Braden Atkinson never has seen Nick Drew's defense. It will come down to how he responds to that level of a defense. Byron Brown did well, but I mean, the prowess of the defense took over. Opportunity for Braden Atkinson. He's got the weapons around him to do it. And as we all know, with the Nick Drew defense, which notched his 4th win over Richmond in a row last week, it's going to come down to what Atkinson can do against Nick Drew's defense. But it'll be a great game.
Absolutely. Gary, Gaffney's coming to play Mallard Creek. Mallard Creek is coming off that big high playing Buford darn near to a draw. They've had a week off, come back down to earth, but now they're stepping right back in it. I mean, what do you expect from Mallard Creek playing one of South Carolina's best?
I expect Mallard Creek to play well on defense because that's what they've done so far all season. Mm-hmm. What I'm looking to see is if Mallard Creek can throw the ball inside the hashes. They are very dependent on bubble screens and people missing tackles. They have a middle school passing game that needs to move up to the high school level. And once they get a passing game, they're going to be hard to beat. But right now, they're dependent too much on people missing tackles on a bubble screen to score points.
Chambers won a state championship doing that.
Yeah, but they had a running back too.
Well, they're one of the best running backs we've had around here in quite some time. That's very true.
They had the top running back, and they had a wide receiver that's starting up at North Carolina State. Right?
Yeah, I think Casey Concepcion was going to have a huge year. Grace, you coached at Mallard Creek. You know, when you struggle on offense, what can you do to kind of fix that when you have a championship level defense?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, make no mistake about it. Coach Tinsley understands what he has on that defense. So a lot of it is really trying to manufacture things through each phase of the game. I think, even when we were there, that when, we were at our best, we were able to get things that, at each level there. You got starting quarterback Evan Rambert. Again, it's his first year starting. And I think what you saw early on this year, and of course he did start a couple games last year, but when you come into the season knowing you're the starter, I think they're trying to get him comfortable, really give him some of those high percentage passes. What you will see, as they did some in that opening game on Thursday night, they'll take their shots down the field when they get those opportunities to Benjamin Black and some of those other guys. But I think now, as they're getting into a place where they know their defense is settled, they've kind of had that week off to really make sure and assess what they've done on one end and really try to build up for the rest of the season. I think you'll start to see some of the more concepts that Gary's looking for here in this second half of the non-conference slate as they prepare for some of those big conference games. So I look forward to again, young quarterback. You wanted to get him through a couple really tough games. I think they've done a great job of doing that. Again, they're 1-1 and darn near close to being 2-0. I think that now what you're going to see is, a little bit of some of that, play action off of the good run game that they have, and start to see some of those things that we want to see out of a good passing attack going forward.
I want to also ask you, Grace, about Marvin Ridge and Lake Norman, but let me come back to you on that one. Sam, we talked about Huff last week, maybe needing to play some of those stud defensive players on offense. Should Malik Creek be thinking about maybe two platooning, or is that dangerous when you have such a good defense to start two platooning too much?
Like I said before, if you feel like the drop-off is so significant and the next guy on defense makes it that much better, then you have to do it. It's just the problem at Malik, or not a problem, but the benefit of Malik Creek is they have anywhere from 100 to 150 athletes from varsity to JV. So a lot of times they don't need a two platoon at all because the drop off is not going to be that significant. It's just they're a good football team. There's nothing wrong with winning 17-10, winning 10-7, stuff like that. I mean, that's still championship type football. Other teams that are used to scoring 40 points a game start getting frustrated and they start thinking they got to do too much. And that's where the defense takes advantage of it, and they get pick sixes or they take advantage of some type of score on a block punt. Any of those things, that's their identity.
So you would keep it status quo is what you're saying, if you're Malik Creek.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with what they're doing. I think they keep improving on small details. They still can run the football well. There's nothing wrong with being able to, like, if you get the ball out to that number 2 receiver and some of the other guys and they're able to go 60 yards, why not do it? It's a low percentage play.
All right, Grace, let me bring it back to you. Southern Carolina's at Greater Metro. Marvin Ridge and Lake Norman. How big a game is that? What do you see there?
It's a huge game. I think it's one of those games, Langston. If you were able to go out to that game, I think you might be able to catch some good, nice little food spot by dinner time. I think these are two teams that benefit from a rush heavy attack. You got the senior quarterback Evan Metters out at Marvin Ridge. He's been able to do it through the air a little bit, but on the ground. Remember, the head coach here is Aubrey Carter. Where do we know Aubrey Carter from? Lake Norman, and having Josh Sadowski. He knows how to run his quarterback and get results there. So expect to see that dual approach there with Evan Metters and the running back. I think it's Lasuski there. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
I don't know how to pronounce his name either, but he's having a big year.
Yeah. But again, they're having a big year. They're putting up a lot of points. One thing I expect to see from Lake Norman and those guys over there, Coach Oliphant, Coach Fitzgerald there, they're going to make sure their ground game keeps that ball out of Marvin Ridge's hands. So I think that little chess match, again, Marvin Ridge has been putting 40 on everybody. I think they're going to try to keep the ball out of their hands, grind it down there, and that atmosphere down there at Lake Norman, and really do everything they can to make it uncomfortable for Marvin Ridge and Coach Carter's return back up there to the lake.
And I will say this. If you plan on going to that game, I know it's a 7 o'clock kickoff. Plan on being there at about 5:30, and you might show up by 7. Traffic is insane.
Traffic's horrible, yeah.
To the road, baby. Yeah.
That's a real point. All right, guys, we're going to take a break. We're going to let Grice warm up his voice so he can break down the game of the week, and make sure while we're on the break, get a sip of that Deer Park water.
Deer Park is celebrating its 150th anniversary. Let's take a look back.
Deer Park, that's good water.
You can taste how pure Deer Park is.
Deer Park, that's good water.
Filtered naturally beneath the earth for a crisp, refreshing taste.
Deer Park.
Deer Park.
Deer Park. Deer Park.
That's still good water.
After 150 years, there's only one thing left to say. Deer Park, that's still good water.
How did you all get in here?
When Langston sends this list out of the games each week, I really don't think I maybe took 5 seconds to figure out which game I wanted to look at. I think this is a game that we all highlighted at the beginning of the year, and with the way both teams have played, it is magnified, I think, how big this game is. I want to say, even, not to go too far into it, it's one of the probably top games of the year. And I think both of these teams, regardless of the outcome, are going to be two teams that are going to have a deep playoff run. First thing here is the obvious one. Can Butler bounce back on such a short week, long drive, and just a huge emotional win? I was sitting here last night watching that game and just, even the joy as a Charlotte area coach to see a coach like Brian Hills, who's done so much for Charlotte area football, get to kind of receive his flowers in front of one of the great Charlotte athletes in Cam Newton down there in his classic. But what a great game. Now Coach Hills is going to have to use that wealth of experience that he has and that his staff has to get his team ready to play. I would say one of the best teams in this area in the Weddington Warriors. So can they come back and really bounce out here and be ready to play against a team that's always seemed to be ready to play? The second key there is Weddington ready for the step up in competition? I mean, they've won 33-25 as their spread for the total score in the 3 games they played. Sure, they struggled a little bit with a better, I think, than expected, or a West Forsyth team that's going to continue to grow and get better. But let's be very, very clear here. This Butler team is going to be way better than anything that they've seen so far this year. I think they have the ability to do so, but again, as we saw with a team as great as Langston Hughes, if you go down early to Butler, it's going to be a long road trying to catch up. So they've got to come in here ready to go immediately and can't start slow. And then finally, I'm most excited about winning the battle in the trenches. Which side? That Weddington defensive line is one of the best they've had and one of the best in this city. But we know Butler and Coach Brian Hales is going to run that ball. If they're able to establish the run early, I think we're going to see a nip and tuck game overall, and we're going to see that they're going to be able to kind of impose their will. But on the other side, too, with Weddington, if they're able to get their run game going, QB Tyler Budge is going to be able to take advantage of that box being crowded and try to get some one-on-one opportunities with his guy, Keenan Jackson, to ensure that they're able to be successful. It's so many stars, and I think both defenses are incredible. I don't know which way this can go. I mean, I feel like it's going to be a low-scoring, tight affair here, but definitely in the league.
Well, I know one person is going to say what he thinks, what's really on his mind. Gary Richmond, what's really on your mind? What's going to happen in this game?
What's really on my mind, I was getting ready to type it in the chat. Are your eyes in the right place? Because play action is going to be big in this game. It's going to be assignment football. So if your eyes are not in the right place, if that safety or a corner has their eyes looking in the backfield and not reading their keys, they're going to make the other team pay. So that's the key. On both sides, are your eyes in the right place?
Guru.
It's going to be a tough game. I've got to just kind of concur with what Gary said. Assignment football, doing the right thing at the right time and just not getting caught, getting sucked in on the pass. And next thing you know, you've got the run going down the other side of the field. I'm kind of in concurrence with you guys. I think that this is going to take. While I think I don't know, just like where the talent is, but I just think that to beat a Weddington team, you're going to have to just play an A game, 4 quarters, and then some.
I kind of get the feeling that, the state doesn't really get Weddington. They're kind of like, we talk about the powerhouse teams. People don't consider Weddington that. And I just want to remind people what Sam said to Andy Capone after week 1, and what Andy Capone's answer was coming back.
Do you think, like, at the beginning of the season, there's a little bit of disrespect? I know you guys are ranked in the top 16, but think about the continuity of Weddington. You guys don't lose a lot. You've gained a lot. The guys have been playing with each other since they're young kids. Yeah. I think at the beginning of the season, there's a great argument you guys are the best team in the state. Hey, you feel like other people feel that way?
We'll see. Okay. We'll see. I'll say this, Union County's got really good football. We got really good athletes playing a tough conference. There's a lot of good Charlotte Mech teams. There's a lot of good teams before it. I believe we're going to be up there at the end of it. And, at some point, the bandwagon's going to close and we're not going to let anybody on there. So
the bandwagon's going to close and we're not going to let anybody on there. So we're going to start a new segment called 3 Questions. This is my first question. I'm going to start with Chris. Is the NCHSAA 4A a 2-team race between Weddington and Grimsley?
No. I don't think so. I mean, I think that there's a few other teams out there that are going to have their say-so in November heading into December. So I definitely don't think that those are the only 2 teams. Are they 2 of the powers? Sure, but I just don't think that they're the only 2.
Alex, give me some Eastern perspective. Is that right or wrong?
Wrong.
Because Cardinal Gibbons and Nick Drew, they're going to stop everybody and win the state championship. But
it's never a 2-team race 3 weeks into the season. Are Grimsley and Weddington very good? Yes, they are. However, no one here would have predicted that Nick Drew's defense would hold Chambers scoreless in the state final like it did. So
it was a monsoon. It was a monsoon.
Rain.
And they were playing right across the street. They
Rain.
literally like skateboarded to the game.
exemplary defense.
I'm just saying.
Rain.
Exemplary defense.
God did rain.
Exemplary defense from the state's leading.
All right, Mr. 3A coach, is it a two-team race or are we crazy?
No,
They
it's not
said
a
it
two.
only
It's not a two-team race. There's about 7 teams. 7 teams that can win a state championship in 4A right now, if you had to ask.
All
I
right.
would say. And I mean, you're leaving out Mallard Creek, you're leaving out Butler, who just came off an emotional win, and we're going to find out that right now. I mean, you can ask this question, okay? This would be a better question to ask after next week if Weddington can pull off that win. And I think they both circled that game. This is going to be an unbelievable game. You got
Weddington would be the favorite because Weddington's is 2 and Butler's 5.
No, I'm not saying this. I'm not. But what you're doing is you're going against an unbelievable Butler team that's coming off an emotional win. Weddington probably hadn't played the opponents. Yeah, I think Weddington. If you ask me, like I told you before, I think Weddington is the best team in the state as of right now. They can do so many things. They can run the ball. They can throw it well. They play good defense. They have good screen game. They have intermediate passing. They have deep ball passing. They have DBs that can make plays. You know, they just got to tighten it up.
Grice, second question of my 3 is for you. Is there anybody on the schedule left to push Providence Day? Part 2, is Providence Day historically good, or are they just good this year?
Yes, I mean Raven Gap is going to be there, and I think what we saw was Raven Gap kind of tooling up. When we saw Anthony Quinn Jr. go from the from the Fayetteville area down to Raven Gap, we already knew what that meant and what that was. Raven Gap is building and continuing to grow their identity to say we're going to run the ball and try to keep Jaden Davis off of the field the entire game. I think that's exactly what they're planning to do. Even the game last year, Jaden Davis was a crisis gem for this game. He had 400 yards passing, and I think they won by 7. So Raven Gap is going to do everything that they can to make sure that they're going to take care of Providence Day. But also on the flip side, Providence Day is a really good football team. This is I feel like they're historically good. I mean, just athletes all over. The running back they got this year. I mean, just so many players all over. The defenses continue to grow and get better. You got the Barnard kid or whatever it's on defense there. Like there's so many names that you just can point out on both sides of the ball that has changed. I mean, before it was, hey, we're going to outscore you, and if we win 60-45, it's all good. Now it's just dominance. That Northwestern game was dominance, and they continue to show that. And so it used to be a private school level dominance. Now it's an anybody, anytime, any place, anywhere. Bank of America Stadium, wherever. They are that good.
Okay, so Chris, I want you to answer the first part of that question, but I want to start you on the backside. I'm thinking like Mallard Creek 2013, Butler 2012, Independence 2000, the Chris Leaks Junior year 01, the Richmond teams in the 90s. I mean, some of the best teams we've seen. Is this team in that group?
I think they're really, really close. I'm not sure if they're quite like 04, 01 Indy good, but I think that'd be a really good football game if those two teams were able to play and we could somehow or the other manufacture that game with AI or something like that. But Jaden Davis is just unreal. You don't go to Michigan heralded the way he does just on hype. I mean, he has got the meat and the potatoes and everything to go along with those accolades. And Coach Chad Greer and what he's doing, the way he's able to throw the ball around and also bring in just talent after talent after talent year after year. I remember thinking back in 2010, 11, and 12 when he was putting together a powerhouse at Davidson Day, thinking, there's no way he's going to keep being able to sustain it. Guess what? They did. And then he goes here and look at what they're doing. I don't doubt Chad Greer at all. I think that Providence Day is going to be as good as they are. Again, Jaden Davis speaks for himself, but look at some of the supporting cast. Channing Goodwin, he's got a sophomore receiver that I think is really sneaky good. I like Bauer, Sodoma, something like that. I mean, they are going to be really good for a long time.
They got a quarterback that they're telling me is just as good as Jaden coming up. But you didn't answer the first part of the question, Chris. Is anybody on the schedule who's going to push him? Can Christian? Can Raven Gap? Can somebody else?
I think, yeah, I do. I think Christian is going to take them to the limit because they're going to play up to that level. And Christian's just as talented. I mean, they're very talented. And Raven Gap is phenomenal. And then, they're also going out and playing, that national type schedule, playing teams like they played Mays, Georgia last night, Baylor out of Chattanooga, Sequoia. I mean, they're going out and playing these best of the best teams as well. So I think that when those teams battle up on, I think it's October 20th, that's going to be a heck of a battle.
That's going to be a really important game because the winner of that game would have home field going into a semifinal or state championship game. And I don't think you want to go to Providence Day. You don't want to go up in the mountains when it's really cold and you're a passing team.
And let's rewind and go back to this conversation we had last year when we had Jaden Davis on here with us during a Grice Gyms, I believe it was. And he made that same point saying that he didn't want to have to get on that bus and make that 4-hour drive out to Georgia to play Raven Gap.
It'd have been a lot colder at state championship than it was when they played. Gary, what was your quick question?
My quick question was, you mentioned all the great teams from Richmond and Mallard Creek, Independence, etc. Yeah. How many kids does Providence Day have going both ways?
Exactly.
Because those other great teams didn't have anyone going.
I would say 5, 6, somewhere in that range, but not always. I mean, in big games, 5 or 6.
Okay. No, well, the Independence team didn't have one guy going both ways.
I'm talking about the Providence Day team.
They historically good. They are one of the best offenses I've seen. I think historically good offense. Defense is really good. I just think the overall depth, if they get in a barn burner and they got to use those guys both ways, it could hurt them. And I don't know how big. I don't know how deep Raven Gap is.
Because the great teams don't have players going both ways.
I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying
maybe Colorado, baby. Maybe Colorado.
I know. Yeah. That. What did Deion say? If he had caught those 2 passes, the house would be chilling at the crib. So
that's right.
All right. So this last question, we got to take Sam out. All right. Here's my last question. I'm coming to you, Gary, right now. Who is the greatest Charlotte area high school coach of the year? Right this minute.
Right this minute.
Right this minute.
Sam Griner.
Sam Griner. Alex Bass, who is the high school coach of the year in Charlotte right now?
Anybody who can rejuvenate the fish fry tradition on senior drive as part of the school's prevailing culture. He is the coach of the year, Sam Griner.
Chris.
I'm trying to be the contrarian and think of somebody else, but right now I do think it would be Sam.
Grice.
Brian Hales. That win for me. I love Sam Griner. I understand what he's done. That win down in Georgia to go play a team and put this area on the map. Sam has done an incredible job so far. But to go down there and get a win against a high-profile team, this team was just playing, I think it was Carrollton, the week or 2 weeks before, as one of the highlighted nationally ranked games of the week, to go do that, with a team from good old Matthews, North Carolina, and get that win is a bigger statement than anything that's been done so far this year.
Hard to disagree.
It's hard to disagree with that one. I was leaning Sam till you made that argument. I think I could go Hales, but I think there's been a lot. I mean, I think Kenny Tinsley's done a great job. I think, people say it's easy to win when you have a lot of talent, but I think it's harder to win when you have a lot of talent for Chad Greer's situation to try to get all those pieces in place. He's done a really good job. Brandon Gentry at Hopewell's done a great job getting them off to a great start. But yeah, given what you said, I'd have to go Hales. All right, so we're going to take another quick break, and we're going to come back with everybody's favorite part of the show, Coach versus Coach. We're going to bring Griner back. Griner's feelings may be hurt because you didn't pick him as coach of the year, Grice. He might be going at you a little bit harder. We'll be right back after this commercial. And drink yourself some Deer Park water.
Deer Park is celebrating its 150th anniversary.
Deer Park? That's good water.
You can taste how pure Deer Park is.
Deer Park, that's good water.
Deer Park, that's still good water.
All right, we've got the 3-shot once again. That can only mean one thing. It's time to lock the doors, man. All right, man, my favorite time of the week, coach versus coach. I got my man, Coach Grice, got my man, Coach Griner. And what better time to wrap up this Talking Prep show than coach versus coach. So let's go ahead and have it going into week 4 of the 2023 high school football season. And our first question, okay, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out here. I'm assuming that you're deferring Coach Grice, Coach Griner.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
All right. You're gonna receive Grice. Have big games versus out of state competition from PD. Oh, there you go. My bad. I can't read it. PD, Mallard, Butler, have they raised North Carolina's reputation? That's up for you, Grice.
No, it hasn't raised the reputation. I think you just had different players or different teams. I think, you had Huff in there as a top 100 team. You had Chambers in there as a top 100 team. I think starting into the year, even in the last year or two. The only thing there is there are just different players. We've always had those 3, 4, 5 teams that could go down there and play with anybody. We're just giving different names, in some of these, in different eras or different times. So I don't think the rep's been raised at all because it's what we do. You know what I mean? Like, I think that we just have the different focus. Now we've got a private school is one of those great, similar to some of these other states. And then we have some of these programs that have shifted or reemerged as a team that you've got to watch for no matter what state you're in.
Yeah, I think Grice is wrong on this one. Actually, normally we agree on certain things, but we have raised awareness. I've had people from IMG and I've had people actually say that the one team that they would trade their team for would be a Buford team, and to see Mallard Creek the battle against them, and if they pulled off one more touchdown in that game, they beat down Buford, and that would have been unbelievable. Now you had Butler just win that big win. We've had a lot of guys just literally. The competition in the surrounding areas of North Carolina is getting better and better and better every year. And it's consistently starting to show up nationwide. And for us to compete and not be scared, think about it in just 1 year. Yes, Mallard Creek had to go to Buford last year, probably a different setting. Now, they didn't. A lot of people thought the Mallard Creek team this year is not as good as last year's team, and they went to the wire with them. So I think it is raising awareness, especially after Butler's big win on Saturday. So I would say the big games are definitely a good look for North Carolina. And I think the recruiting world will see that as well, because there's a lot of guys on the teams that those teams played that are being heavily recruited. Now you're going to see some of the guys from Butler not recruited. The Mallard Creek guys are like, why are they in these games, or why are they winning these games? And they're going to see new recruits coming in. So it did put us on the map.
I agree with you, Sam. And, I wrote a column for the Observer about 2 years ago, I think, about the recruiting hotbed that North Carolina has become. And traditionally, it's about the 5th or 6th best recruiting hotbed in the country. And again, a lot of that's population based. We'll never have the numbers that a Florida or California has, or Texas. But I do think that it raises the credibility of the state. And I also think that it's going to help other players in the state get looks at colleges, just because colleges are going to be making more and more trips here to the Carolinas.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we're going to stay with you right here, Sam. Second question here of coach versus coach. Will UNC's new look defense and running game put the Tar Heels in ACC title contention this year?
100% if one guy's able to play. Free Tez. I think Tez is a big factor for them winning an ACC championship. I think the continuity, Drake May, you said a long time ago, a lot of people ridiculed me. I think he's the best talented quarterback I've ever seen come out of North Carolina, and that's including the Chris Leaks of the world. And I think we're finally starting to see this. But the continuity of that team, they were lacking some defensive flying around. I thought they performed extremely well versus a very tough South Carolina opponent. If we remember correctly, South Carolina last year went on a tear. I mean, they were whooping everybody towards the end of the year. And to come out in the Bank of America Stadium and come up with that big win, even with Drake May throwing 2 interceptions, uncharacteristic like himself, I think they can win an ACC title. But I think, like I said, the key factor is Tez getting ruled eligible by the NCAA, and they definitely should let him play.
Free Tez, first off. Funny story we'll talk about later with him having a 102-yard interception return while I was at Hopewell against us. Great talent. I can't wait to watch him play again. But Griner, no, all that stuff. See, that's how I know you have amazing confidence. That's why I knew you would have a beautiful wife, as you got older, and do all these wonderful things. Because you talked about Drake May like he was one of the best quarterbacks you've ever seen, and he played an absolute stinker of a game against a mid-tier SEC team yesterday. And let's continue our
mid-tier.
Let's talk about yes, mid-tier. They're not better than Georgia. They're not better than Alabama. They're not better than LSU. There are probably one or two other teams.
You pull up the record.
He played terrible, and British Brooks and those rest of the run game and the defense saved his butt yesterday. That was a terrible performance. He is not going to sit here and win the Heisman playing like this. We saw this with Sam Howell. He started Creighton, started to tell a little bit, whether it was the way they went with the coordinating or whatever. We're seeing that again, and that's the problem. Luckily, the defense will help give them a chance, But I don't sit here and look at Carolina after that performance and say they're going to go out here and win an ACC title. I just don't see it. Especially going against a team in the Atlantic. Florida State is going to be a team they're going to have to watch out for that has the defense that they have, and he is now looking no better than a Jordan Travis, which is sad to say for a guy that they're talking about or putting on the Heisman watch list.
All right, hold on now. They were already good on offense. He played in a so-so game, still played well enough. Their defense.
I want to hear that. Caleb Williams didn't play a so-so game.
They didn't play no South. Who did they play against?
I'm saying you're talking about.
Okay.
Now we're saying. I'm sorry. No. The coordinator took the ball out of his hand. You can't call me greatest ever.
No.
Took the ball out of his hand.
Trump. Listen, South Carolina beat Clemson last year, correct?
Clemson's not good anymore.
Okay, they beat Tennessee. Did they beat Tennessee? Did they beat Tennessee?
A fluke.
Correct. Okay, so it's not a mid-tier anymore. That is a tear of a South Carolina.
That was last year. Griner, last year you weren't 3-0. This year you are, Griner. This year you're 3-0. This year. We're talking about this year, Griner.
Last year I didn't even have a summer. I think I got to coach like 3 games into the season.
Right. This year, Griner, hey, you're free this year. This year, Griner. This year, baby.
Free test. We can agree to that. Free test.
We always can agree on that.
All right. I will say this, and I've been following that Carolina team since the early 80s. The defense last night looked as good as I've seen them since Carl Torres days. I mean, they looked really nasty on D. So good for them. All right, sticking with you here, the final question, Coach versus Coach. Coach Grice, should Charlotte's 24-20 or 24-3 victory over South Carolina State be impressive or worrisome for the 49er fans?
Worrisome. They should be scared. Oh my goodness, they should be scared. If you go look, Jackson State whooped South Carolina State by more than Charlotte did in this game. I mean, the biggest thing I look at, I mean, goodness, if Juwan Howell, the running back for South Carolina State that started Mooresville High School, if he's a sophomore or junior or just a little bit older in that game, he probably runs all over them the entire game. And this is a situation where it's a much closer game. I watched the first half of this football game, and I just shook my head and said, I'm really worried for the era right now, what's going on. I think that there are a lot of things that Charlotte has to do to kind of clean up. We saw some bad penalties in a situation offensively where they've got to get some cohesion and make sure that they're doing the things to put up the points that are necessary. The one piece I saw, defense did seem to look a little bit better, and then maybe that was opponent dependent. But I am interested to see how they kind of progress from that game one, because I saw that and I was nervous for the Biff Pogier.
Like, once again, I disagree. I'm impressed that they are finally playing defense. Name a North Carolina at Charlotte, team, even North Carolina in general, outside of NC State, that have played great defense lately. Well, they finally did. South Carolina State has great athletes. You would think that it would be able to get explosive play and get some touchdowns, but they limited that. Anytime you have great defense, you can build upon that and you can win games. It's not all about scoring 40, 50 points these days. It's about playing defense and giving your team a chance to win. Biff is coming from a Michigan team that's lived off of the defense aspect, running the football defense. It's not about high scoring. I think that this is going to trend into the right direction. I'm impressed with it. Yes, would you like to see a 40-something to 3 win? Yeah, okay, great. But I'm more impressed just because of the defense aspect. Their identity is getting where it needs to be.
Ron, I'm just asking for them to do what post-prime. We're not even talking about Jackson State with prime. This is post-prime. They put the smackdown on South Carolina State more than what Charlotte did. I'm just post-prime now. We're not talking about TC, baby. What Coach Prime call him? This is what Coach TC, baby.
You're wrong again. Every time Prime leaves a little bit, like the new drink, Prime gives you a lot of energy. All right, you long factor. So Prime left. Jackson State still
with the energy. He had the cutoff. Where's the energy? The cigar. I need the energy.
He left some gold flakes there. They're still living off of that stigma.
I gotta hear from Gary on both these questions. Gary, you start with Charlotte. Is that worse or good for Charlotte?
That's worse, because like Rice said, South Carolina State got blown out by Jackson State last week. Jackson State got blown out today by FAMU. So
just like they did with Prime was there too.
Yeah. So
stop, man. Leave Prime alone. Go ahead, Gary.
That's not a good look. What's your
second question on Chapel Hill? Did that defense and running game give you any confidence that Tar Heels can make it back to Charlotte for the ACC championship game?
I don't think the running game was all that great. I didn't see much difference in it.
Amari and Hampton looked pretty good. Grice gave
him and British Brooks were. That was the part that was the shining part. Y'all looking at the
I
name.
don't think it was all that great.
I mean, Drake didn't play well. They still won.
I thought South
They didn't
Carolina
need Drake to play well.
You want to run the ball, put your quarterback under the center.
Oh my God,
Put your
Garrett's
quarterback.
1975, man.
Drake May is one of the best athletes on the field. Don't forget about that. He could
don't want to
start
get
in the
hurt
ACC
running
in
and running the
basketball.
football.
Wait a minute. Second part about Grice talking about Drake May didn't play well. He had two receivers who were in the starting lineup originally, Colin and Tiggs. Okay. Then you had Blackwell that dropped two passes, hit him right in the hands. Drake made one bad throw last night. Okay, the one across
when they're taking the ball out of his hands. Again, Grinder says the best thing since Chris Leak. I didn't see them do that to Chris Leak. I know Swamp Kings wanted to do that to my man Chris Leak.
Man, Swamp Kings dog Chris. Hold on. Swamp Kings dog Chris Leak.
That's what I'm saying. They did.
Maybe he said, "I don't want to interview with you guys." And if he
That's
said
probably
that,
what happened.
If he said that, I give him a break. But they didn't quote that man. They didn't have him on TV speaking. They act like he didn't exist in the national championship game. Gary, who was the MVP of the national championship game when they won? Chris Leak.
Tim
he was
Tebow,
on Tonight Show the next day.
Drake May ain't never getting one of those. Ain't never.
They made it seem like Tim Tebow won that game. I'm sorry. I love the documentary.
I said, Grice, this will make.
I didn't mean.
We gotta go, Grinder. We don't need to hear this.
No. Well, I got a last say anyways. Ha! Boom.
You want your shot? Here we go.
Yeah.
Big Star, one shot.
Yeah, shout out to North Carolina football in just general. You know, we going to these other states, playing the big games. They got national recognition. You know, shout out to the alum, Butler High School, Brian Hills, Stone, everybody doing their thing. Little John, proud of you guys. Way to do your thing Saturday. Now, going back to Grice, like I said, when it's all said and done, look, Drake May will be the best quarterback that ever came out of daggone North Carolina, Charlotte area. Watch. And I'm talking about as a career, not just college, but as a career. You will see.
Love the kid, but that's it's too much. Love the kid is too much, though.
Drake May's tracking to be a top 2 or 3 pick in the draft next year. So, I mean, he's got a shot for sure. Chris Leak was just born too early because they didn't want 5'11" quarterbacks when he was coming out. But he definitely had all the attributes. All right, guys. I actually made it in time today. So, I want to thank everybody for watching. Grice is happy. That's Sam Grinder, the coach of the 3-0 West Charlotte Lions. Most of the people picked you as coach of the year. A couple of us didn't, including me.
It's only 3 games into it, Langston. I gotta win. I gotta win some games.
We gotta talk about something.
Everybody, when we play Mallard Creek in 2 weeks, everybody pick against us. So,
that's probably true. Yeah. That's probably true. That's Sam Grinder. That's Jonathan Grice, the number 2 voice of high school football. That's Gary Richmond, who does not mind being on the Twitter video in slow motion with his voice over top. Does not mind. Mallard Creek, you heard what he had to say about you earlier. Does not mind. Alex Bass, the contrarian. Chris Hughes, the feeling a little bit under the weather, number 1 voice of high school football. I'm Langston, and we are Talking Preps.